Hi there everybody! So today I'm going to be showing you how to create hatch fill patterns that will allow you to color in words or images that you might want to have your Cricut draw for you. So when you use the pen operation or the drawing feature in Cricut Design Space, it will only ever do the outline. But let's say you want to have it filled in, perhaps with a pretty typography like we're going to be doing here today, or perhaps you have a certain image, an SVG that you bring in, and you want that to be filled. So in order to fill these, this is not something you can do inside of Cricut Design Space. You will have to do the filling setup in Inkscape, which I will show you today. Once that has been set up in Inkscape, then you will be able to import it here into Cricut Design Space, change the line type to pen, and then you will see the result of the filling here. Couple of quick disclaimers just so you're aware. I would consider this an intermediate lesson. If you are not familiar at all with Inkscape, then please see my resources below so that you can get started in a beginner with a beginner tutorial and not something that's more intermediate like this. If you want to learn how to design your own SVG files, typography files, and all that stuff for your crafting needs, customizing photos and customizing images and converting images, I would encourage you to check out my free The SVG Master course, and I'm going to link that below for you as well. So like I said, in order to do this, we have to use what's called a hatch fill pattern. Hatch fill patterns need to be created inside of Inkscape. If you have not ever used Inkscape, you can download it for free on inkscape.org. Again, I will link this below for you, and there is a full blog post on this, which will also provide additional resources and links and things like that for you to learn at your own pace. In addition to installing Inkscape and using that, you're going to need to also install the Hatch Fill Axi Draw extension, and this is what's going to allow us to add the hatch fill patterns inside of Inkscape, and then we'll save our file as an SVG and we'll be able to bring it into Cricut Design Space. Again, this will be linked for you below, and I'm going to show more of a picture step-by-step tutorial in the blog post. That way, if you need a little more help on the actual setup and the installation, you can find that below in the video description for you. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump into this. First things first, I've gone ahead and I already have Inkscape. I've been using it for years, so it's installed on my computer. I've opened up a fresh document and I have decided what imagery I would like to input the hatch fill pattern into. For my example today, I am just using this typography image here. Now, I downloaded this on iStock, I believe it was, but you can also check out freepik.com if you're not familiar with that. It's a good resource for things like typography and vector images and things like that. So we could just type in quotes here, and I would change the resource probably to vector because we're looking for vectors that would work inside of Inkscape, which is a vector graphic program. And then we could grab one of these typography quotes here that we could use in this example. So this is just a resource and an example of where you could go to find something like this. If you want to know how to type out your own text inside of Inkscape, I have a separate video on that I will link for you below, and all of those in-depth step-by-step lessons are available in that free The SVG course. So let's get started with adding our hatch fill pattern here. This image is opened up here in Inkscape, and I'm going to select the entire image. In order to select, you just click and drag over the image. I'm using my primary cursor, and we can see that is selected over here at the top left-hand side. Once I have selected that, we need to turn off the fill and turn on the stroke. So a fill is the color that we're seeing here on our screen. The black is the fill. Black and gray is the color we have. We have gray around the edges, and we have black filling in here. And we want to change it so that it is just the stroke, which is the outline only, kind of like what you would see in Cricut Design Space if you change the pen drawing and it's the outline only. That's the first step, is to get it to look like that. So in order to open up our fill and stroke panel, to adjust that, you would want to hold Shift-Control-F on your keyboard, or you could just double click down here at the far left hand corner where it says fill, and it'll also open up that panel here to your right hand side. So once you are there, you want to toggle over to the stroke paint. It will likely be off. There's a chance, depending on your image, it could be on, but it will likely be off. And you'll want to select the first little flat color square right there and turn that stroke on. Then toggle back over to your fill and click the X mark so that we're removing the fill from our image here on our screen. Now we just have an outline. Now before I go any further on this, I want to decide if there's things I want to eliminate from this image before I start adding in the hatch fill patterns. Now the reason I bring this up is because when you do these drawings in Cricut Design Space, you want to be mindful that because your pen on your Cricut is going back and forth so many times, it will create sort of a bleed with the ink. So you want to make sure that there is some dedicated space between your letters so they are legible. For example, the one over here that says there's always something to be thankful for, I spaced those out a little bit better my second time around. The first time around, it kind of made the H and the E look like it was going together. So I'm going to space them a little bit better here in Inkscape first before I start adding any of these hatch fills in. There's also some additional lines going on here that I'm going to get rid of just to create some additional space. I'm just clicking and dragging over the pieces that I want to delete, and I'm hitting the delete key on my keyboard. And like I said, guys, this is an intermediate lesson, not something I would recommend beginners start with, so please be mindful of that and check out those resources below so that you have a good foundation to start with. So I'm just getting rid of some of these additional pieces here that I don't want. You can also click specifically on the piece and delete that way as well. And I'm going to get rid of these little extra swashes. And the reason I'm doing this part is because if I were to leave these on and I did a test of this, it will potentially just make it look a little bit harder to read. It's not as legible. So that's why I went ahead and deleted some of that. I'm going to go do the same thing right here with the word B. And I'm going to delete that and any stray pieces I don't want. Alright, so I've cleaned that up a little bit more. That may not apply to your particular step, but I just wanted to bring that up. And I'm going to space out the word kind just a touch more because I want to make sure that it's plenty legible. Just moving it a teeny tiny bit, but it makes a big difference. So I'm just holding, clicking, and dragging. Alright, so now I'm confident that as that is getting filled in with my Cricut machine, that it will be legible when the result is done. The next step is going to be to add our hatch fill. So remember, you have to install that hatch fill extension, which I'm linking below for you. And in order to add our hatch fill, you want to select the entire image and you want to go up to extensions. And once it's been installed, you will see Axi Draw Utilities. And there'll be a drop-out panel here, and hatch fill will be one of the options. That's what you want to click on. A new little panel here is going to open up for you, and the first thing you want to do is you want to tick the live preview so that you can get a preview of what this is going to look like before you apply it. So there's a preview. This is already set to my settings that I had before, but I'm going to walk you through my suggested settings right now. So you'll probably see the crosshatch turned off, and you'll see some other numbers here that are different. The first number here we look at is hatch spacing. How much space is between the lines that are being drawn. The closer your lines together when you're dealing with a pen, the more likely your ink is going to bleed a lot. So I recommend, in this particular example, I had it at 7.5, but I would maybe crank it up to 10 and add just a little more space there, because even though we can see white space between this hatch fill, when our pen is going back and forth that many times, it's gonna fill it in. We don't have to worry about that little bit of space. It's gonna fill it in pretty darn close. The next one down here is hatch angle. That is the angle that the lines are going. Are they straight up and down? Are they horizontal across? Are they at a 45-degree angle? Personally, 45-degree angle to me is the best because it looks the best to our eye, it looks the best across images and text, so I pretty much always leave it at 45 degrees. So that's what I would recommend for you. The next part down here is crosshatch. Currently, my crosshatch is turned on. So what is a crosshatch? Let me turn it off to show you the contrast. I'm going to untick the crosshatch, and if we look closely over here, you will now see that the lines are just going back and forth one diagonal direction. It's not going back and forth both directions. So if you want to save time on this, then I would highly recommend leaving the crosshatch off, and it would just go back and forth the one direction. But if you want it to look more filled, then the crosshatch being turned on would be good. So when I turn the crosshatch on, you see the lines are now going both directions. They're going diagonal to the left and they're going diagonal to the right. They're going back and forth, kind of like drawing a bunch of X's in the side of these letters here. So just select that according to your preference, but that is a great tool to know if you want to turn that on and off to try different results. Connecting nearby ends basically means that anytime an end of your line is meeting the end of your word here, that it could connect it, and the reason that can be helpful is because it will allow your Cricut machine to continuously draw instead of picking the pen up and having to turn the pen every single time. It speeds the process up significantly. So one of the reasons I don't like the connect nearby ends is because it makes the edges a little less crisp, because if we look closely here, it's basically going back and forth, kind of like a little loop back and forth instead of straight up to the edge. So it's really up to your preference. If you're interested in speeding the process up significantly, then I would check that. But if you want it to have super crisp edges, I would leave it unchecked. And I'm going to leave mine unchecked. These settings down here, I do not generally mess with very much. This is how far is the hatch fill inset from the edge. You can just copy the numbers you're seeing on my screen here, or you can leave them at the default if you like. Once you're happy with the spacing of your hatch, and if you would like to turn on crosshatch or not, you'll go ahead and just hit the apply button. Give it about 3 seconds to apply. Once you do that, there's no message that comes up. You'll just close the box out. So just close the box out, and then it will be applied. All right, so we have successfully applied our hatch fill. There's a couple more steps you have to do though in order to import it into Design Space correctly. So once you get to this step, you want to select the entire image again, and you want to go up to Path at the top of your screen. And Path is just what we're seeing on our screen here. A path makes up an image on our screen, or an object on our screen. So you want to go up to Path, and we want to click on Stroke to Path. And the reason we're doing that is because if we don't, it's going to read these lines in a way that will not import correctly into Cricut Design Space. So we need to change it to a path that Cricut Design Space understands, and therefore will show the hatch fill pattern being imported correctly into Design Space. So just select your entire image and then click on Stroke to Path. Once you do that, it's probably not going to look like anything changes at all on your screen, but just know something did happen and it was very important. The next thing you want to do is right click and go down to Ungroup. You can also hold Shift-Control-G on your keyboard to ungroup everything here. Again, it may not look like anything has happened, but something actually has happened. So just know that you need to ungroup, and that is a very important step. And to know that everything has been ungrouped appropriately, if you hold Shift-Control-G on your keyboard and you look under the color fill bar here, it will say no groups that need to ungroup. That means everything has been ungrouped. We can't ungroup any further. It's been ungrouped. So you can find valuable information down here about your objects that are on your screen. All right, so very last step here. If you're planning on doing this all in one color, you can unite the entire thing at this point. If you're planning on doing the words in separate colors, then you'll want to unite each word in a separate color. Uniting in Inkscape is the same thing as welding in Cricut Design Space. It's just a different term. It's the same process, the same action basically. So I'm gonna start up here at the top and I'm gonna click and drag my AW and all the letters for the word always. Sometimes you have to work in sections, so I'm just gonna click and drag that part first. And I'm gonna go up to path and union. So I've united this top piece here. I still need to unite the A and the Y to it, but if I try and click and drag over that, I end up selecting some things down here. So I'm gonna click and drag over the word B and all those little swashes, and I'm gonna unite that first, path, union. Now I'm gonna come back up here and click and drag to select the A and the Y to the rest of the word always, path, and union. So now the word always is one piece, and the word B and the swashes is one piece, and now I gotta just click and drag over the word kind and those little dots, path, and union. And it's really important to unite your words together in Inkscape first, because if you try and import this without doing that into Cricut Design Space, it's probably gonna freeze Design Space on you because it's too much to read. But when we unite it together, it makes it more simplistic for Design Space to read. All right, so we are officially done with the setup of this. We just need to save this. So let's go up to File and Save As. And I'm just gonna pick a random spot on my computer here, and I'm going to type in always be kind. You can leave it at the default Inkscape SVG. You don't need to change the format, and just click Save. On a side note, it's a good idea to go ahead and save the document earlier in the process, just in case, you know, it were to shut down or something were to happen to your computer, you don't lose all of your work. So I would have technically done that earlier in the process, and that's exactly how you would do it. Let's jump over to Cricut Design Space now, and let's go ahead and bring this in. I'm just gonna open up a new canvas here, a new window. And then I'm going to click on New Project. I'm gonna upload this just like I would any other SVG file. So I'm gonna navigate on my computer to where it is. I'm just going under Quick Access here, and I'm going to upload that. Okay, so if you get a message like this where it says uploaded SVG contains items that are not supported, pattern fills, import anyways, you can just hit continue and you're fine. Cricut Design Space sometimes will give you this message and it's actually not a very accurate message. So just click continue, and as long as you see your image showing up as you saw it in Inkscape, then you're perfectly fine. So I'm gonna click upload. We're gonna select that under recent uploads and insert the image into our canvas. All right, so we have brought this image in. Now, like with anything in Cricut Design Space, when we import it in as an uploaded image, it's going to default to an operation of basic cut. So we need to now change that to a draw line or a pen line so that we can finish this effect and have our machine draw instead of cutting this out, because we wouldn't want to cut this out, it would be really messy. So I'm gonna ungroup the image, and I'm gonna select the word always at the top, and I'm gonna go down to pen, and we're gonna change that to a pen line, and then we're gonna select the color swatch next to that and select the color we want it to be. I'm just gonna change it to like raspberry, and I'm gonna repeat the process, changing each one to the pen line and then selecting the color that I wish to make it. So let's just choose this one. Actually, that's a little hard to see on the screen, so I'm gonna choose something else. Let's do candy corn instead. And the word kind, and then pen, and my last color of choice, I think I'll make it candy crystal. All right, there we go. We successfully created a hatch fill, brought it into Cricut Design Space, changed our operation to pen, and now when we put this into our machine to draw, it's going to draw, but it's also going to color and fill all of that in. The last thing you want to do is you want to make sure you're using your attach tool so that this doesn't move on you. If you want to add a square behind it so that it actually cuts out like a little card, you could do that at this point as well. So I will just show you that. I'm unlocking my square and stretching it here. I'm going to send it to the back using the arrange tool, And I'm gonna change this to white. And I'm gonna bring this over here and stretch it to make it appropriate size. You can also select things individually by holding your shift key over here in the layers panel, which is what I'm gonna do with my words here. And I'm gonna use my attach tool. And then I'm gonna select the square and the words, and I'm just gonna center it just to make sure that it's centered properly in the middle of that square. And then with the square and the words selected, I'm gonna use that attach tool one more time so that when I go to my cut screen, everything looks exactly as it does here on my canvas with the help of that attach tool. So now it's time to go ahead and let our machine draw this out. Let's take a look. Alright, so my Cricut machine is well underway drawing this here. I have just inserted the pens as I am prompted into my clamp A. You can do this on a Cricut Joy machine as well. I've done it on the Cricut Joy, the Maker, the Explorer. It works with any of the Cricut machines. You'll just need to adjust your size accordingly. If you're using the Joy machine, of course, it won't be as large as what you could scale on a full-size machine. It takes some time, so just be prepared to, work on something else for a while it's drawing this, and then come back to it to change the pen out when you're prompted. I highly recommend having your computer plugged into your machine so that you don't run into any possible chances of Bluetooth dropping off or something like that, and then having to start over, which would be not fun, and I have had that happen to me once. So just be patient with the process and check back on it every few minutes or so. This one you're seeing here took about an hour and 20 minutes total from start to finish, but the result was well worth it. I thought it was really pretty when it was done. In order to display this, I cut out a frame from glitter cardstock, and I'm gonna link those frames for you below. I made some for free, so you can download them below. And I cut out a frame of which I added a mat board behind to create a sort of framed wall hanging piece, a piece of wall art that we could use this on. So it turned out really cool, and you could hang these up in classrooms or around your home or gift them to somebody. Just having affirmations around your house or in your classroom is a great way to use these. You will notice on my word kind that it's a little bit lighter towards the top than towards the bottom, and I found that because the pen was held upside down for a longer period of time, that the ink sort of started to work better after a significant period of time. So I would recommend making sure your pens have been sort of upside down for a couple of minutes before you start drawing with your Cricut, and that will help eliminate that issue of maybe having some of the pen lines be lighter than others. I'm still happy with it, and I'm still going to keep it overall, but that's just a little note for you there. You may even want to scribble with the pen on a paper for just a second, just to make sure that it kind of gets that ink flowing before it starts drawing with your Cricut machine. I'd love to know how you would use them, so leave me a comment below and give me your ideas. If there's another type of tutorial with this hatch fill drawing you would like to see, then also leave that below and I just might do it.